deteriorate. It's going to get a lot worse as we move into the evening, into the early morning here. So a lot of people evacuating here earlier in the day. That's the good news. But also talk to some people in town who say they're going to ride this thing out. And they say, I've been through hurricanes. I live in Florida. The thing is, this is a bit different. This is a Category 4 storm, a major hurricane. There hasn't been one of those in this area for more than a decade. And each storm, as you know, very different. So it's something they'll have to contend with now because the time to evacuate is quickly running out here. What emergency officials have said is if you're going to stay, if you're going to hunker down and ride this out, do it. Get inside, stay inside, and don't take any chances. Great advice from them here. They also warn that at the height of the storm, when conditions are really bad, they're not going to put their people in harm's way. So you're riding this out at your own risk, at your own peril. As they do that, the situation with the emergency teams here on the ground, we've seen a few patrolling. The streets, though, for the most part, are empty. That, again, is the good news. A lot of people listening to the advice. Brian, let's get some more from you now.
And Daytona Beach right now is getting an outer band. It's really nothing related to the core, but this outer band is sitting right there, which take a look at the radar and you're going to see that it's in the same place over and over again down that I-4 corridor there. So we have a significant flood threat from that, and that's the rain you saw. Now there's later rain with gusty winds in here, but down to the south, this is where the important bands are. One is coming in now. Here comes the bigger one, and here is the most intense part of the storm, still in the center of that big broad eye. We'll continue with our continuing coverage of Hurricane Matthew on the Weather Channel in just a minute.
I'll call you back. Is this my car?
State Farm knows that for every one of those moments,
This is ridiculous!
there's one of these.
Is this my car? What? This is ridiculous.
This can't be happening!
This can't be happening.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Shut up.
Shut up!
Ah!
That's why State Farm is there.
What?
With car insurance for when things go wrong, but also here with car loans. State Farm.
Severe weather is I think, when the
James and I have been adjusting some of the numbers down. We're in this constant hurricane coverage, and we're seeing some of these numbers in the last hour. Like, it is a little bit too high considering the latest track and the fact that it made landfall over Grand Bahama. It didn't track over the Gulf Stream. It was much farther away. It was 70, 80 miles away from us at its closest approach to Palm Beach County. Now, the Treasure Coast is a different story at this point, and they're going to be closer to those hurricane force winds. Did you have a question, Michael?
Steve, you've done such a good job, and tell me if I'm overemphasizing it, but blend what you're seeing weather-wise in Palm Beach County with the implicit safety message that goes with it right now through the night.
Yeah, absolutely. We still have big tropical storm force winds are already being recorded. We just had a 52-mile-an-hour wind in Juno Beach, a weather sensor there, and obviously a major hurricane Category 4 just off the coastline that still has a chance to intensify a little, but that's not the official forecast, and I think it's unlikely that it's going to intensify anymore too. But 130-mile-an-hour winds, it's moving northwest now, so that puts it in a position almost due east to Jupiter, even though it's moving away from Palm Beach County. Some of the hurricane force winds will come right up to the North County area but I'd be very surprised if we get reports of 80 or 85 mile an hour, even 85 mile an hour wind gusts. Seems very unlikely for Palm Beach County. But this is a very windy night and a dangerous night to be outside. Lots of power outages. We're getting reports of transformers firing up along the coastline too. And as it moves closer to the Treasure Coast, remember it's not moving due north, it's moving northwest. So that brings it very close to the northern Treasure Coast around 2 to 4 in the morning. And with a track like that, we start to get into this area here. This is the hurricane force winds in this storm. So this is what Treasure Coast, Vero, Sebastian, Fort Pierce, Port St. Lucie will be dealing with late overnight. For Palm Beach County, it's tropical storm force winds with the chance of a hurricane force wind here and there, but not widespread at this point. It's just too far off the coastline, and that track is now slowly moving away. So there it is overnight, Category 4 just off Vero. There's the 2 a.m. position, almost due east of Vero. But look at how much closer it is to the beaches here than our area in Palm Beach County. We're talking 80 miles here right now, and we're talking about 30, maybe 40 maximum on the northern Treasure Coast. And then it tracks up along the coastline through Saturday, through Sunday, and then a big wraparound, almost a bizarre track back into the Bahamas as a tropical storm next week. And we were talking to the Hurricane Center earlier, talking to Ed Rappaport, one of the forecasters at the Hurricane Center, and he said this is unlikely to be a big storm on Tuesday and Wednesday, perhaps a tropical storm. And we're watching it. We may get in an air cone once again, but as far as doing significant damage, unlikely because it's moving south. The hurricanes and tropical storms will typically move south, and if they do, they have a very difficult time keeping their strength when they do it. There's a radar, and obviously the bands working in, and this is the feeder bands are where we see our strongest winds and some of our heaviest rainfall. The current maximum wind gusts, this is what we've seen so far, and this isn't right now necessarily. This has been popping up in the last couple of hours, 40, 50 mile an hour winds. Current wind gusts you can see are close to that, a little bit less. And the power outage map continues to change through about 1:30 in the morning. High chances of power outages for Jupiter, the Gardens, up in toward Port St. Lucie and into Vero and Sebastian. Obviously a little higher because we have a storm late overnight that is just off the coast with hurricane force winds. So that's an area that we'll see some of the more substantial power outages, and that will happen late overnight. Even though we're already getting reports of power outages in the northern Treasure Coast, and actually across almost the entire viewing area reports of these outages so far. I'm working here with James, and of course we're updating all the information as Michael said. We actually, if I flip through, hopefully I can bring up the storm surge map. Unless you're going to talk about it, James, I want to bring up the numbers because we had pretty significant changes in the storm surge situation. James is going to adjust the computer here. I spent quite a bit of time lowering some of these numbers. Thank you very much. So South County around Boca and Delray and Highland Beach 1 to 2 feet. And obviously this coincides with a high tide. 1 to 3 around Lake Worth into West Palm. 2 to 4 as we get in around Jupiter Island. These are pretty big changes because the storm is farther off the coast, but it climbs not so much around Stewart, but as we get into the around Fort Pierce and Jensen Beach, 4 to 7 around Vero, Sebastian, intracoastal and along the beaches and back in some of these rivers that have tidal flows too. All right, James is going to break down what we can expect in each county through the next 24 hours, kind of give you an idea of the max wind speeds and the threat for tornadoes and stuff like that.
Thanks, Steve. And yeah, I was just checking the chat there. We had 59 mile per hour wind gusts once again at the St. Lucie Nuclear Power Plant, and also sustained winds at the Juneau Pier around 52 miles per hour with higher gusts. So as we get into the overnight hours, definitely seeing that 45 to 65 mile per hour wind range, less in South County, more going up to the north into North County. Get gusts up to hurricane force possible too as it gets a little bit closer. Tomorrow morning the storm starts to pull away in Palm Beach County, so the wind drops quite considerably, but still pretty breezy for a good part of the day and then slowly taper off throughout the rest of the afternoon as it drops into the 20s there by the end of the day. Lake Okeechobee overnight 40 to 50, especially right off the lake. You're going to get those stronger winds, gusts up to around 70 miles per hour. Tomorrow morning drops to 25 to 35 and some gusts up to 45. And then by tomorrow evening, we just mainly have a west or even southwest wind at about 20 miles an hour. Martin St. Lucie County starts to ramp up here in the next couple of hours or so, 50 to 75 mile per hour winds. Wouldn't be surprised to see some wind gusts up to 90, especially closer to the coast. We'll see those as you head farther inland. That drops off. Tomorrow morning, still pretty windy out there, 35 gusting to 50. And then by tomorrow night, the storm pulls away more. We drop it down into the 20s once again. Indian River County, again, this was the one we expected to have the highest winds, 70 to 80 mile per hour winds in the overnight hours as this moves a little bit closer. So we're talking later in the night, maybe wee hours of the morning is when the peak will be for you. In the morning, still very gusty wind up to 60 miles per hour and dropping off later on in the day, say maybe in the evening hours there from 30 to 35, gusts to 45, and then down into the 20s as we get into about this time tomorrow night.
All right, James, Steve, thanks so much for the update. All right, next up, we want to head up to Martin County. Our Jacqueline Powell has been with the Martin County Sheriff's Office and doing a ride-along. Let's see what deputies are finding. Of course, they're warning Stewart with the ride-along with Martin County
are out right now making sure that people are safe and that everyone has everything in place as the hurricane approaches. They say they will stay out throughout the night as Matthew comes in.
Lord, thank you for this day and this moment that we just get to stand together united as one team.
Deputies prayed this prayer together before going out on what could be one of the most dangerous 12-hour shifts they've ever faced. We rode along with Deputy Michael McCarthy.
We're trying to warn people, the last stragglers, see if they have a plan, give them information about the shelters, where they're at.
As we were out in Stewart, a lot of other people still were too.
Do you guys have everything that you need?
Even with evacuation orders in place, McCarthy says too many people are staying out when they shouldn't.
Yeah, you got water. You guys gonna try and go to the shelter?
At Sandsprit Park, even people with a plan have been out here watching as the wind and waves come in.
We've been in the house all day long preparing, going stir crazy.
We just want to see before it gets real bad. We want to take a look.
The surge getting high enough to even feel the waves.
Flash up into my face because I was at the cracks and it would... Oof.
The same thing happened to my photographer. Deputy McCarthy says the waves are nothing to play with, to get inside, and to remember if you have an emergency, the sheriff's office is standing by.
When somebody calls and they need help, we're going to do our best to try and get them that help.
The deputies say they may start hunkering down as wind speeds get higher at shelters or fire stations, but they say no matter what the wind speed, they will come back out and help people if there's a life-threatening emergency. In Martin County, Jacqueline Powell, WPTV News Channel 5.
Our team coverage of Hurricane Matthew continues. A strong Category 4 storm off the coastline. It's ravaged Haiti, run through the Caribbean and the Bahamas, where they're only now beginning to assess damage. And now, of course, we wait to see what kind of impact it'll have across our huge 5-county area.
And tonight we are simulcasting on FLX, Fox 29, and all iHeart radio stations. We have a list we'll put on the screen for those of you who still have power, but we can run down that list as well for those of you who do not. 1230 WBZT, also Wild 95.5, 1290 WJNO, Cool 105.5, Oldies 103.7, and Wave 92.7. And we're going to have nonstop, uninterrupted coverage until the storm passes.
And we right now want to bring in our Storm Team 5 experts. James Whelan here with us as we are at the top of this latest hour. Give us an overview.
Wind gusts, 59 miles per hour in some locations. St. Lucie Power Plant, we just had that 58. And that's going to start to ramp up because the storm still, if we look at it, I'll do the little tracker here. It's 60 miles away from the center of the storm we are right now. And starting to pull off. So notice it's just getting north now of the Palm Beach, Martin County line. So winds now going into Palm Beach County are going to start pushing in this direction out of the northwest. Still going to be pretty strong though. And here in the Treasure Coast, we're still looking at strong northeast winds. Had that one big band that goes through Vero Beach. Now it's moving right into Okeechobee, probably 45, 55 plus mile per hour winds moving through Okeechobee right now, and then that will continue to pivot through the lake. We may see some water starting to pile up around this side of the lake here, South Bay, Belglade, especially then when the wind turns northwest. We're going to see that too. And all of this right here, this is a particularly nasty band. You could tell too, there's a couple lightning strikes in there. That's just a sign of some upward motion there, and also some very gusty winds that may get mixed down to the surface. Of course, the core of the storm right here, the eye wall right there on the north, we've been tracking that, moved over Grand Bahama a little bit earlier, but now it's out over the open ocean. We're not really thinking it's going to strengthen anymore. We were talking with the Hurricane Center a little bit earlier, and they don't really think, they think this thing already reached its peak, but still, it's a very wide storm. And if we put the tracker back on here, we're going to look at, all the way across. We're talking 100, maybe 110 or so miles across. So looking at some of the bands that are moving through right now, you can see it's just starting to graze the coast. We had that one really strong one. I went outside earlier here at the station. It definitely was coming down and blowing like crazy. And you see that main band there just back to the west. And we see some of that pivoting in now, moving into Lake Worth and Boynton Beach. Boca, you're all right now. You have a little bit of a break. You're kind of right in between bands at the moment and squalls. And same with Stewart, right on the beach. You're kind of right in between. But that's not going to last long for you. In fact, it's going to go downhill here with that band just lingering just offshore. We take a closer look at Jupiter too. Boy, Jupiter's been getting a pounding because right now, Wellington, Royal Palm, they're a little bit inland, so you won't get kind of that direct punch, but still, you're still going to get some pretty strong winds, even though this thing now starting to move up to the north. Steve and I have lowered the wind expectations for Palm Beach County, but every now and then you get one of these lines that comes on through, and in that, you can mix down some 50, 60 or so mile per hour winds with that. Regardless if you're in Wellington or down in the Boynton or up in the Jupiter too, kind of all of that area is going to be all of, Palm Beach County from our western communities to the coast.
Right, Bobby Harrington, I'm sorry, Michael, had said, is Loxahatchee going to get hit? So kind of all in that same.
All in
Wellington,
the same, yeah.
Royal
Our western
Palm,
communities,
right.
the same. A little bit less than along the coast, of course, but now that the wind is kind of turning more northwest, that's going to push through our western communities too. Maybe not quite as strong, but we're still talking a tropical storm force wind gusts in some of these feeder bands that move through.
Right.
A nasty weather night, but if it ends up for many, not all, but for many being nothing more than a very, very nasty night, given what we have been worried about and what's been lurking offshore and what it's done in the Caribbean, count ourselves lucky if many of us can say that the preps, we do them all over again if we keep this thing offshore. And of course, a lot of our Treasure Coast friends still have got a lot of tough stuff to come.
Jennifer Santiago had written in, will Matthew and Nicole merge? We haven't talked much about Nicole that's out there as well.
And you know what? Nicole turned into a hurricane. It's a hurricane now, expected to strengthen 80 or so miles per hour, but it's way out there. And it also is going to do a little loop-de-loo. It's just its little loop-de-loo is going to be out to sea and not bother us at all. And they kind of both, as they come south, start to weaken and diminish. A couple of the models did have them, one of them absorbing the other one, but for the most part, they'll probably just both weaken and dissipate at the same time, moving in similar directions,
All right.
James, thank you as you continue to keep us abreast of the very latest and as we put a good deal of our focus on what's yet to come for the Treasure Coast. And again, reminding everybody that safety is paramount. Please stay sheltered in place. Wherever you are, stay there, allowing safety for yourself and emergency crews to do the work they need to do.
So our crews continue to find some damage from Matthew in our area. We have our photographer Amanda Crane, who is out tonight and came upon a downed tree at the Indian and Evergreen in Stewart. The Martin County Sheriff's Office deputies chopped the tree up to clear it so that the first responders and crews could make their way through. So obviously, if it's something that's going to prevent first responders getting somewhere, they're going to try to take care of it as quickly as possible.
And again, people will have headaches, large and small, and everything in between. Ashley Henson with the latest on one scene that's unfolding for somebody. Ashley?
A few scenes for you guys. I want to show you first this one in Tequesta. Look at this tree if you can come in closer. It completely fell over. It looks like a palm tree, and on top of this roof, it looks like it broke the gutter there too. So they are blaming Foster Kalani, blaming strong winds for that tree knocking over. I also want to show you this one from the Indian River County Sheriff's Office. They're reporting street flooding just east of US 1. In the 3800 block. Some water over here. We've seen worse in different areas in this parking lot. It looks like of a business here. Some palm fronds also spread out all over that parking lot. So some debris definitely from the wind. And then I want to show you this video too. This is from Lynn Lunassi. She's saying transformers are exploding all along Haverhill Road. We want to watch this together because you see that blue flashing light in the background lighting up the night sky. Can we play it again one more time? There it is, and I pause it, and that is a transformer exploding. That's happening across our counties. We're continuing to hear reports of that, so it can be very dangerous, so definitely stay away from that. Obviously, we're hoping you are all indoors at this point, but we'll continue to monitor social media and bring you guys more damage, more video, more pictures as we get them in.
All right, Ash, thanks much. News Channel 5's Megan McRoberts live in downtown Fort Pierce. Seeking shelter, wisely so. Thanks for doing that for your own safety and crews, Megan, and weathering the elements. And Megan, give us a sense as you're near the shelter how it's looking there now.
Everything's actually looking really good right now. We've heard Steve talking about these squalls. They come in and out of the area. Right now we've got kind of just moderate wind speeds, I would say. I think we have seen some faster wind speeds throughout the night. So not as bad as we've seen earlier, but certainly still windy. There's still some good rainfall. We're actually on the second floor of a parking garage right now, so we have a pretty good vantage point for some distance, and everything's looking really fine right now. I mean, the roads are certainly wet, but we're not seeing any flooding, really nothing to be of really any concern right now. So we've taken a little break just to dry off and take a break from the beating of the elements, but we figured this is a good calmer time to give just an update on some of the latest numbers and information from the county and law enforcement. I just got off the phone with both within the last 3 minutes or so. As far as the county goes, they tell me everything's running really smoothly with the shelters right now. Over 1,000 people here in St. Lucie County, I think about 1,080 or so to be exact, are in the shelters right now. We're hearing about neighboring counties, I believe Indian River County and Martin County, that have these set closed, and no other really issues to report. There are some power outages here in St. Lucie County, but again, the public information officer there tells me that deputies might approach some people that they see walking around this late at night just to make sure for their safety that they do have a plan and do know that this storm is approaching and conditions are going to get much worse in the near future. So, of course, not getting anyone in trouble, just making sure everyone is okay. I also am told they are still periodically going on to Hutchinson Island, though we know fire crews have evacuated. Deputies, when there is a break from these squalls that come through, they are still going out there to check on people. But they say, fortunately, out there, they're not finding anyone walking around, which is the good news. As far as emergency calls, also no real emergency calls coming in, just those automated, some people that have alarm systems on their house during these storms, sometimes those will automatically be set off, and those are automatic calls that go into dispatch. But so far, no one is calling in with any problems. So it's all good news to report for now. I think the story out here, Michael and Kelly, is just that people are just waiting to see what happens in the coming hours.
Well, Megan, we know nerves are stretched taut. We appreciate your tireless work and that of all our crews up there, and you all be safe up there as we go through these bans and still have a long night and the longest part of it yet to come, but we'll be with you. And it's tough sitting at home or wherever you're, or shelter and saying, I'm waiting, but we all do have to patiently wait it out.
It was James who said earlier, hurricanes are slow. They don't usually just come in and rip across and you're done with it. We have some crews, as you have seen, spread out across our viewing area, monitoring all the conditions. We have Jason Hackett now in Lake Worth.
The situation definitely deteriorating over the past few minutes here in Lake Worth. We're right next to the bridge. You can see it right there in the distance. Coming over the bridge, the winds were going and blowing so powerfully it was rocking our car back and forth. You can see the wind blowing the rain on the road. Definitely not a good time to be outside. As you can see, the trees blowing in the wind right now. We just left South County a few minutes ago. A number of down power lines, specifically one in the town of South Palm Beach that was causing sparks all over the place. It got progressively worse in terms of the weather heading the further north we got. We started out in Delray Beach, started to make our way up through Boynton, and now here in Lake Worth, definitely feeling the effects, those gusts of 30 miles per hour or more. You're struggling to stay on your feet at this point. Ride this storm out with everybody else at home. For now, we're in Lake Worth. Jason Hackett, WPTV News Channel 5.
Jason, thanks as always, and thanks to all of our teams out there.
That's right. So for a look, let's see, we're about 45 minutes away, right from the next update?
Yes,
coming up from the Hurricane Center.
Yeah, and a new forecast track, and the storm's moving northwest right now. We're watching a very, very strong band come in the next 15 to 20 minutes, probably in northern Palm Beach County. And this is a feeder band that has some very, very strong winds with it that could create some more power outages too. So there's a look at the latest radar. See that bright red from just off Jupiter and in toward West Palm. It's just offshore. So this is moving, well, these storms embedded in this are moving about 50 miles an hour. There's some lightning in this too. An indication that these are very, very strong storms and they may intensify a little bit more. You know, typically there's not a lot of lightning in a hurricane. We've seen quite a bit and persistent lightning near the center of the storm. It's died off a little bit, but lightning on some of the outer feeder band, a little unusual, but we have some coming in now, and more lightning off to the just off the coast of Jupiter. Look at how quickly this is coming in along the coastline. So I would say in the next 20 minutes, we're going to see some very strong winds work in around northern Palm Beach County and then down into West Palm. Everything's moving about 50 miles an hour. The storm center is 55 miles off the coast of West Palm. This band here, this bright red area, is about 10 to 15 miles off the coast. So as it comes in, we are looking at some very strong winds. This is still a powerful hurricane. I think, you know, the way we're talking about things being a little bit better in Palm Beach County, that's not to diminish what's going on in the center of this. We're in the eye of the storm right here. As we fly through, you can see very tall, cold cloud tops to 50 and 60,000 feet right in the eye itself. This is what I love about Live Viper 5. Look, we zoom right into the eye, show you how concentrated the storms and the deep convection is near the center of this. This is why it's been so persistent, so strong for so long. And there's that band right there that is lining up right along coastal Palm Beach County with, again, the threat of some very strong winds. So this moves toward the Treasure Coast tonight. There's 2 a.m., Category 4, about 20 miles off Vero and Fort Pierce, and then wraps up to the north after that. And eventually, late weekend, early next week, we're looking at a storm that's off the Carolina coastline. So big, big weather maker right here. There's that band showing up on Live Viper 5 Max. Big storms, heavy rainfall, and gusty winds. We'll watch for any kind of severe weather threat. Back to you, Kelly and Michael.
Steve, thanks much.
All right, we want to check in right now. Chris Stewart's been live up in Indian River County and Vero Beach outside the Indian River Mall. We want to check in with Chris on the conditions there. Chris?
Yeah, well, the wind definitely the story here right now. The rain also falling at this moment, but we'll show you here as we're in the parking lot right outside of Sears at the Indian River Mall, and you take a look at these palm trees, and you can see what the wind is doing here right now. We've felt some pretty decent gusts since we've been here, which has been for more than an hour. But you just take a look at that American flag off in the distance there, and you can just see where the wind is standing at this point. Now, we did see, we've obviously heard reports across our area of transformers going out. We can tell you that we saw a green flash off in the distance a short time ago, so that may have been a very similar situation that we're dealing with here up in Indian River County. But again, the wind, the big story, the rain also has been coming down at a pretty decent clip, going in and out over the past hour since we've been standing here. But some pretty strong gusts right now here in Indian River County and Vero Beach at the Indian River Mall. As we send it back to you.
Chris, thanks much. We Sanskrit Parkinson. We're going to go back to our weather team in just a moment. Amanda Crane found high waves along the banks there. We'll go to that in just a moment as you look at some of the waves crashing ashore at Sanskrit Park in Martin County. And you'll see a transformer, I'm told, in one spot blowing in the background. And again, that's the blue flash there. I don't know if we'll catch it in this frame. And for those of you listening to our coverage, the waves washing ashore on a dark and ugly night, a storm-tossed night, the surf tossing ashore there. And our weather team, of course, monitoring all the bands of weather, creating this kind of mess.
That's right, Steve Weigel joining us again. And you were looking right there at Sanskrit, Steve, with the waves crashing ashore.
Yes, and we're going to see more of that overnight. The storm is about 65 miles off West Palm Beach, and I'm watching this band that is coming in around North County, so Jupiter, Juno Beach, and Palm Beach Gardens in the next few minutes, because it does appear like it has a real strong winds and heavy rain with it, and you can see it on the radar there very, very clearly coming in along the coastline in the next half hour. So that is an area that we're watching through the next few. You can see it there on the radar, and wind gusts so far, you can see anywhere from, well, we have some impressive winds. Port St. Lucie, almost 60 miles an hour now. We're now at 31 in Okeechobee. We're not expecting very, the hurricane force winds around the lake, and 30 to 40 to 50 around West Palm and back into Jupiter. Current wind gusts, you can see, again, 20, 30, well, really 30, 40, and 50 miles an hour. And some of the stronger wind gusts are going to come in from that little band that's working in around Jupiter, just off the coast of Jupiter in the next 10 to 15 minutes. There's our probability of getting some power outages. We're already seeing power outages up and down the coastline, and we're going to see more in the next few hours as the winds continue to pick up overnight. Again, very high chances, probability for seeing power outages late overnight around Vero, Sebastian, a little bit less in the orange area here along the coastline of the Treasure Coast. But again, with the winds very, very strong overnight and persistent, not really letting up because the storm is moving slowly, we'll see more damage. Already just flipping through Facebook and some of the emails coming in, big trees coming down now and some roadways. They're trying to clear those out. And for the next couple of hours, it's going to be, I think for the next hour or two, it's really these 40, 50, and 60 mile an hour winds that are coming in from the north and the northwest. And then late overnight, we start to approach some hurricane force winds on the Treasure Coast as this all begins to move inland. You can see that boundary there is just off Jupiter. Those are the sustained winds of 74 miles an hour or stronger, and this all lifts north. So, northeastern Palm Beach County looks like it misses the worst of this, but the Treasure Coast obviously getting into some very, very dangerous winds late overnight between about 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. where they peak around Vero and Fort Pierce. James is here actually with a better breakdown of exactly what we're expecting and when for each county.
Yeah, we'll start with Palm Beach County, and pretty much we can say we're not going to have direct hit of the core of this system, the eye, in Palm Beach County. It's now north of the Palm Beach County line. It's not coming back, but that doesn't mean we're not going to see effects. We're still going to see some very gusty winds going through the overnight hours. 45 to 65 mile per hour winds. We're watching that band that's just offshore. That has about 60, 65 mile per hour winds in it. We could see gusts higher as we get in through a little bit later in the night, and then things start to taper off. By the morning hours, we have a lot less, 30 to 35, gusts to 50, and then tomorrow afternoon, we're down into the 20s. Let's go to Lake Okeechobee. Straight wind out of the north, so we could see a little bit of a surge on the southern rim of the lake, and then when the wind turns northwest, maybe towards the eastern rim of the lake there, 40 to 50, gusts to 70. Very isolated gusts to 70, though. And then tomorrow it drops down into the 20s tomorrow morning and even into tomorrow afternoon. Looking at Martin and St. Lucie counties, still the worst is yet to come. We'll see some of those bands move ashore very quickly. They're very, very close right now, and you're going to see your weather go downhill. We could see some gusts up to even 80 or 90 miles per hour in some isolated areas. By tomorrow morning it drops, though, and by tomorrow evening it's okay. We're just into the 20s, but it'll be a gradual decrease through the day tomorrow. Indian River County should be the hardest hit county there with the most power outages at least expected. 70, 80 mile per hour winds, and looking at gusts possibly up to 95 miles per hour. Tomorrow morning still going strong, but it will start to drop off after that, and then by tomorrow night we're dropping it off even more, and then by Saturday we're looking a whole feeder band that's just coming in offshore, and you see it right there. So I put the Doppler radar on it. We're looking at the wind gusts that could come out of this thing, the velocities, and look at this, over 60 miles per hour. This by far has been the strongest band that we've seen, and it's starting to push on shore, say from maybe just northeastern corner of Palm Beach County, and that'll go up to Stewart too. But you see the speeds there from the upper 50s to the low 60s. Wouldn't be surprised there for the mid 60s or so. And you see elsewhere in Palm Beach County looking at a little bit of a break here from Boca and even up into Boynton. We're seeing some rain starting to pick up in Wellington and rural Palm, maybe a little bit stronger there, but not bad. But mainly up in the Jupiter right now, looking at the strongest, and then the strongest looking right now just offshore. Up to the north, Sebastian, you've just been seeing this constant flow of rain. Vero too, every now and then you get a heavier burst of it, and that pushes down to the Fort Pierce right now. We're seeing Fort Pierce with maybe a little bit of a heavier cell moving on through, but these things moving very, very quickly. And in any of these little cells that you can barely even keep your eye on because they're moving so fast, you can see wind mixed down, and that's where you're going to get those big push, those big gusts in. They're not going to last long. It'll just be a big gust of wind. That's what does a lot of damage too, because things are leaning already, and then you push them even more, trees go over, telephone poles go over, and power lines come down.
James, come on over here, because we just got a new report from the Weather Service, a significant weather advisory with frontal clouds for the storm that's just along the southeastern side of the lake. They're capable. This thunder 7 miles north of Canal Point, and obviously this was a couple of minutes ago, so now it's to the south. But Belglade, Pahokee, South Bay, Canal Point, and around Lion Country Safari. Oh, so it's this entire line.
This whole thing right here.
So that there's some rotation with that area, and so we could quickly see a funnel cloud or a quick tornado touchdown from that line of storms as it's moving south at 35 miles an hour.
Here
so,
and here.
Yeah, big area of rotation there aloft. Now that doesn't mean that there is a tornado on the ground. We don't have a tornado warning, but we're going to be dealing with this situation all night, where we want to give you the heads up that there's a certain area that has a chance of seeing severe weather with damaging winds. They pop up very quickly. A lot of these storms, a lot of these bands are moving south at about 50 miles an hour. So you have very little time to prepare, and we want to give you the heads up immediately when we start to see anything that's a big concern. So we have a couple of bands.
Yeah, let's look at this.
In northern
Look at
Palm
this
Beach
that's
County.
just formed though.
Yeah, that's firing ahead of the other line there. Maybe somewhat of almost an outflow boundary, hard to say, or maybe just another line of ahead of the feeder band, the main band. But those winds
moving very quickly to the south.
And I suspect we'll start to see some pretty good wind reports coming in from that. So that's moving through the gardens, and there's a second one just off the coast. It's going about 35, 40 miles an hour too. As the storm gets a little bit closer, we knew it would graze northern Palm Beach County. Look at the returns just off Jupiter and West Palm. So it packs a punch, and that's what brings the power outages. It's not this 35, 40 mile an hour sustained wind. It's the wind gusts that kind of chip away at the infrastructure, if you will, and you get a little bit of compromised, power structure, and then suddenly you have power outages popping up in a certain area, and also structural damage to roofs and buildings and fences and all that sort of thing.
Well said. Still taking our share of punches, and of course for our friends on the Treasure Coast, maybe more than that. We'll be with you throughout the night, of course. Keep an eye out. Thank you, gentlemen. And of course, we'll go back to our Weather Center team immediately if you see anything.
Yeah,
in that
we'll
severe
jump
category.
right in and let you know if we see anything, we get any warnings or anything like that.
We do have some pictures that are coming in tonight from the Riverside Cafe. I know, Steve, we were talking about this earlier tonight up in Vero Beach. Indian River County emergency officials are telling us that the back of the restaurant by the docks is underwater. Darcy Jackson visited Riverside Cafe a little bit earlier.
Yeah, here in Vero Beach, we're starting to first see these outer bands of the storm come in. We're looking at winds at almost 50 to 60 miles per hour. And here at the Riverside Cafe, you can see the first signs of flooding at their deck. It's a good sign that storm surge is on its way. Now, we've seen police patrolling this area. They're driving around making sure folks are not in this area and are staying away from the water at this point. And if you're looking for a place to seek refuge, you won't be able to do it at a Red Cross shelter at this point. They are closed now. They are hunkering down and will not be opening those doors. So you'll have to seek refuge somewhere at home. In Vero Beach, Darcy Jackson, WPTV News Channel 5.
Now I want to check back in with Ashley Hinson in the newsroom.
That's right, with a few tips on what to do if the power goes out. Ashley?
Yeah, guys, so many of you, really thousands of you, you're already without power. And if you still have it, it may be going away soon. And if it does, some things to remember about your refrigerator. And we have all the tips here. I'm going to actually post this to my Facebook page as soon as I get done talking to you about it, so you can check it out there. But this one sounds kind of simple and kind of obvious, but never open the door. Not to the fridge or the freezer. So if you keep the door closed to the refrigerator,